All right, guys. So we're back for another live streaming of the Oh Hell No podcast tonight. Last night I did Side Talk. Tonight I'm back on the Oh Hell No podcast. So tonight we have Roger Smith. He is a former president and CEO of American Income Life Insurance and Liberty National. And he is an author. He wrote a book entitled The Most Unlikely Leader. And tonight we're going to get to know Roger Smith. So welcome to the podcast, Roger.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I appreciate
it. Yes, I'm happy to have you here. So the first question I'd like to start with is, when you were young, what did you think you would do for a living as an adult?
When I was really young, I wanted to be a vet because I loved animals. And so I was always, in New York, I was walking dogs. I was always picking up stray cats. So I loved animals. And then I realized I couldn't take the blood. I wasn't going to be able to, I get too attached. I wouldn't be able to do that. So, yeah, that was kind of like the first thing that I wanted to do.
That's so funny. I thought I was going to be a nurse, and the same thing. I don't like blood. I don't like seeing people sick. And then I took chemistry and I was like, what the hell is this? And then I changed my major.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't too good in school, so it wasn't going to be anything going in that route anyway.
So how did you find your way into the world of insurance?
It's an interesting thing. So just to back it up a little bit, when I was 15, up until the age of 14, I was a really good kid. I was in the musical carousel in junior high. I was a star. I was in the chess club. I didn't get A's and B's. I got B's and C's. The summer of my 14th year, a switch flipped. And by the time I was 15, I was a drug addict, I was homeless, and I was a high school dropout. So it was a drastic turn of events that basically led me for many, many years of addiction and, trying to get back into the norm of society. I was fortunate enough that my stepfather had started with American Income about 9 months before I did. And he kept on saying, Roger, why don't you try this? And up until that point, I couldn't keep a job. I mean, nothing was going well. And, it was like I was desperate. It's not like I had all these avenues in front of me. It's not like I had all these prospects in front of me. In fact, I didn't have anything in front of me. So, without a high school education, I said, let me give this a try.
Wow.
And it started right there.
So 15, what started you with drugs? Like, did someone have it that you knew when you tried it? Did someone spike your drink or something?
No. It was a bunch of bored kids, looking to do something. And the something at that time was drugs. And it was right, in the beginning of the hippie movement, drugs were really prevalent. But it just so happened it went downhill really quick. One of the guys got a job on a hospital dock, like loading and unloading, and all of a sudden we had morphine capsules that that we were then shooting, and then from there it went to heroin. It was a quick slide.
Wow. So you got into the insurance because of your stepfather. So when you started working in insurance, were you stable for that time, or did you have points in that where you lapsed?
No. I was a functioning addict for 20 years.
Oh.
So yeah, unfortunately, that's an unfortunate because usually you can hit your bottom really quick and hopefully come out of it. but I was functioning. I was the number one salesperson in the company. I was just burning the candle at both ends. And unfortunately, it's not sustainable. So when people look at you and they're looking, oh man, this guy is really successful, it wasn't sustainable at all. And in fact, in my book, The Most Unlikely Leader, the index is geographical because I moved around a lot. And that's exactly the reason. It wasn't sustainable in any one spot. So I would, go somewhere else, start over again, that type of situation.
That's so interesting to me because I think that there are a lot of people who are just like what happened in your life. How okay, so when you would wake up in the morning before you went to work, would you do drugs in the morning before you went to work, or maybe at lunch or at the end of the day? Like, what was that
Yeah.
like for you?
Yeah. So, especially like in the 80s, I started with this company in 76. So late 70s, 80s, cocaine was so popular. And, it was like the movie Blow. I mean, you do it in the morning, you do it in the afternoon, you do it at the restaurant. It was an all the time thing. Yeah.
Okay. So, and then you were just able to do your job and do it well. It didn't make you sleepy or, crazy or anything like that. You were just, like you said, functioning. Because listen, I don't know anything about cocaine. I mean,
Good for you.
I've seen movies, but we don't really know unless you've like been there or someone who has, is very close to you and you watched it.
Right. Right.
So okay, you were good at sales. Do you think it was the drugs, or do you think this was something inside you that you just had this great ability to be a good salesperson?
I don't think there was a whole lot that I was good at. I think there are naturally born salespeople, naturally born leaders, naturally born CEOs. I wasn't good at it. In fact, when I first started in sales, they say when you get to the close, don't speak, that if the other person speaks, they're going to buy. And I would get so nervous that the back of my neck would start to shake. And I literally thought that people thought I was having some type of seizure. I mean, I was so nervous, so bad. So everything that's happened to me in my career, it's all learned behavior. It's all, practice and practice and practice and practice and working hard at it till I could get comfortable at it, and then I could get confident with it. So yeah, for me, I guess I learned early on, that philosophy, if it was easy, everybody would have it. And so once I understood that none of it was going to be easy for me, especially from where I was coming from, then it was a matter. Fortunately, I was blessed with a good work ethic. So I was willing to work really, really hard at it. But, when you're an addict, all that energy that you have, it's just negative energy. It's like all you're worried about is taking care of your addiction, right?
Mhm.
Once I stopped, once I got clean, then all of a sudden it was all this negative energy that I'd been using, and I turned it into positive energy. And that's when really success happened. That's when it was sustainable.
So did you transition from being a functioning addict to someone who's sober during your work experience in insurance?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
At that time, I'd been promoted. I was a salesperson. Then I was a manager. Then I was a state general agent. Ran an area, a state. So yeah, during that time, I was definitely. But like I said, it wasn't sustainable. So like I was a state general agent in in Arkansas, and then I was one in Maryland. I had to move because all of a sudden things would start to come crashing around me. because
Right.
you couldn't maintain it. At least
Yeah.
I couldn't. Right.
All right. Well, so being a manager, I'm always very interested in people's perspective on management, because management is like a really important subject to me, because I just feel like management is when you manage people, you're really helping to usher them into their greatness. So if you're a
Yes.
horrible manager, you can really damage, someone's self-esteem, their self-worth,
Yes.
their all of these things. So getting to a
So
place,
true.
yeah, for real. I mean, getting to a place where you are finally sober and doing a good job, what would you say are some skills that management should have, like a manager should have?
So I'd almost take that word out and use a leader. Take
Mhm.
out, because manage, you manage things, but a
Yeah.
leader leads people. And so, when I look at it, I see four things that a leader must have. And the first one is leaders have to be visionary. They have to see further, they have to be able to dream bigger, see further than the people that they're leading, so that they can take their people to new levels. A leader has to have influence. So you can have this big dream of where you want to go, what you want to build, but if nobody's following you, it's you alone. So you've got to be able to influence people. And there's two ways for that. One way is you got to get results. So if I want you to follow me, then I better show you that I can get results and that I can teach you how to get results, right? So number one, I got to get results. And then number two, you have to know that I really care about you. And I don't mean about like caring so that I look good. I'm talking about where you really, really care for the person's success, you care for their family, you feel responsible for it. And when you do that, people will follow you to the end of the earth. They just will. I think you have to have really strong systems. You ever see like there'll be the leader of a company and he or she will retire and the company falls apart. And it's because the foundation, the systems weren't strong systems. You should be able to walk away from it, walk back, and it still be working because the systems are strong that you set up. And then the last part is that you need to be able to inspect the systems. And that's a tricky part because people will say to you, well, what, you don't trust me? And it has nothing to do with whether I trust the individual or don't trust the individual. It's I need to make sure that my system's working. And if I want to make sure my system's working, then I got to inspect that the system is working.
Yeah.
So I think if you had, all four of those things can create a great leader. And of course, having perseverance is just key in the deal.
I love that. I love you saying that leaders have to be visionary. Like that is like really good food for thought, because I guess sometimes people really don't think about, the future, right? They're just thinking about, okay, I just want to be a manager. I want a
All
promotion,
right.
I want this, that, and the third. But like, okay, you get the promotion. What's your plan? Like,
Right, right. I mean, if you're not spending time daydreaming every day, then you're not doing that part that's so important, you know?
right. And then
Yeah,
when you're building this vision, you have to be building it for the people that you're leading as well. What do you see for them? So knowing
right,
their strengths and weaknesses and how you can help to elevate them to where they're supposed to be. So
right. What are their dreams? Where do
right.
they want to get to? If you don't know what they want, how are you going to lead them? And you
Yeah,
don't. Yeah.
absolutely. I love that. That was great. So I when I introduced you, I said that you are a former CEO of the
Uh-huh.
sales you used to work for. Are you still in sales? And after doing it for so many years, would you say that sales was a passion for you or just something that was there, you learned how to do it really well, and it was your bread and butter?
Listen, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed what I was doing, which made it so much easier to teach people how to do it. So I retired about 4 years ago. And that's when I decided to write my book, because I wanted people. Sometimes people look at life and they think, oh my, the deck is stacked against me. I don't have the right education. I don't have, the right background. I don't have this. I don't have that. And instead of going for it, they just kind of give up before they even get started. And, the purpose of writing The Most Unlikely Leader, an unbelievable journey from GED to CEO, was to say, hey, no matter where you are in life, doesn't matter what you're educated, doesn't matter. No matter where you are, no matter how stuck you are, that you can get out of it. You can move past it. You can overcome the obstacles that are in front of you.
Yeah.
And I'm perfect proof.
Yes. And
Right?
I love that. That's why I love your story, because I feel like a lot of times people get down on their luck and they feel like, oh, I'm never going to have the life that I want because I made a mistake, or
Right.
I did a crime and I spent time in prison, or I did drugs or whatever. Like, we're all redeemable. And as long as we're willing to work hard and make the necessary changes in life, we can achieve anything we set our minds to. So that's why
Right.
I love your story. So
Yeah.
what happened that made you say, I'm going to write a book?
To me, it's a part. I just feel like I'm so blessed. I really do. And so I'm just always looking for ways to give back. And writing the book was my way of giving back and giving hope. And it's funny, though, because if you write a nonfiction book, and somebody says they don't like the book, or you write a fiction book and they say they don't like the book, you go, okay. If you write a book about your life and somebody says, I don't like the book, you're going, wait, man, that's my life you don't like. What's happening here? So it definitely put me in a very vulnerable position. It's like the way I dealt with, I don't know, traumatic things in my past maybe, is I locked it in a compartment and it's deep down inside and I don't ever think about it again. That may not be the right thing to do or whatever, but it's what I do. And in writing the book, it's all of a sudden I had to bring up, all this stuff that had just been buried for a long time. Going back for 1 second, I did want to tell you the other philosophy that I've had that has really done me well throughout the years. That is that, most of the times you hear or you've said to people, don't burn your bridges. And you may remember this from the NPS. So my philosophy is burn every darn one of them. And I say that, and I don't mean relationships, though you can burn it if you want. But what I'm saying is we come across obstacles that we think is so insurmountable that we set ourselves up for failure. We have like a plan B or an escape hatch or something where we go, well, if this doesn't work, I'll do this. And guess what? It's self-fulfilling. It doesn't work. But if you burn that bridge behind you so that the only path that you have is forward, that's all you're going to go is forward. It is amazing how creative you get to overcome that obstacle, to go through it, to go above it, to go around it, and get onto the other side and keep on going on the path towards your success. And that's been really, really important to me, because I knew I was going to have a crap load of obstacles in front of me. It's just the way it was going to be.
I love that. Yeah. So burn
Yeah.
that bridge and make that plan, the plan.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
So when people pick up this book, what will they learn from the book? Like, how did you break down your life story, and what do you want people to ultimately take from it?
Well, I think what I said before, which is that no matter where you're coming from in life, that if you dream big enough and you implement and you move forward, then you can realize it. Um, I I broke it down in first being just my life and going through from my childhood all the way up through adulthood and to finally being CEO. But I also shared my successes, my failures, the power of mentors, multiple mentors. I was so fortunate, and I tell people all the time: search out mentors, search out people that are wiser than you, that can teach you stuff. And I've been so fortunate to have mentors of my stepfather who brought me into the business, the founder of the company who taught me about social injustice, and if you're going to take out of the community, you put back into the community, and you know patience and looking for the best in people, even when they can't see it themselves. And then the CEO of the holding company who said, "Listen, Roger, nothing's as good as it seems, and nothing's as bad as it seems." And I wish I had known that early on, because my highs were so high and my lows were so low. And if I had realized that in my low periods that this too shall pass, and in my high periods that okay, you're going to hit a wall, it's just going to happen, then your highs aren't as high as your lows aren't as low. And the other thing he taught me is Roger, you know, stop reacting. Just respond to the situation. Don't react. Because as a leader, I was like that, putting out fires all the time. And it's hard to move forward when you're putting out fires versus just taking a step back and breathing, looking at it logically, and then coming up with a solution. So, it's an aggregate amount of mentors that teach you, and you learn and you add, and it makes you a better person, and it makes you a better leader.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I
yeah,
love.
you get me preaching about that for sure.
No, I love that you shared that, because mentors are really important. I learned that, for people who, you work in a corporation, look to someone that like that you admire or you want to be like, and, go up to them and say, hey, I would love if you could mentor me. I forgot what I took. It was some type of class or something like that at one of my
Hmm.
jobs. And they taught us that, you should definitely, look for people who you aspire to be like, or who are doing things that you want to do in the future, and just ask them to mentor you. Because some
Yes.
people don't know where to find mentors.
Right.
That's
No, no, that's a perfect way. And don't be afraid to ask, because the reality of it is people enjoy sharing their knowledge. There's nothing better than for me when somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, Roger, how did you do this? And, can you share this with me? And what would you do?" And they're asking all these questions. And I love it, because it's somebody who wants to better their life. There's the old saying that you're either, ripe and rotting or green and growing. And, you want to surround yourself with people who are green and growing and not in the rotting stage.
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a good one. You got a bunch
Yeah.
of gems tonight, Roger. I'm just like taking notes like, hey, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what would you say is your purpose work today? Like, what makes you feel fulfilled? What do you like doing?
So, I think I'm consciously looking for ways to give back. And I do this through charitable work. I drive the homeless to doctor's appointments. I was a guardian ad litem where I'm the voice of, foster kids. So I'm always looking for ways to give back. There are certain things I miss. As a CEO, I gave a lot of speeches and I was used to a lot of applause. And all of a sudden that all stopped. So I joined a community theater. I started acting, and so I'm sitting there going, okay, well, I can get some applause here. That'll feed that part. And it's almost like there's a whole pie, and there are pieces that you got to start filling out. And I wish I had understood balance, and I didn't understand balance. I wish I had, because when I retired, it was like, wait a second, 100% of myself was in the company. My social space, everything was in there. And so all of a sudden I had to learn how to find that in different places. And so, today when I talk to people, I say, hey, listen, just be present in whatever you're doing. If you're with your family, be present with your family. If you're working, be present in your work. Spiritual, be present in your spiritual, your physical. Just be present in those moments. And if you do that, then you won't find yourself trying to juggle stuff, and then the balls start falling. So yeah, that's a real important lesson that I wish I had learned earlier, but it's never too late.
It's never too late, Roger. You're still kicking. So,
I'm still kicking. That is true.
You can apply that to your life now. I love that you started taking acting lessons and you're, following another passion or potential dream. That's pretty amazing. Good for you.
Yeah. I try to get out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I actually do a pretty conscientious effort of doing that. So I try to do something that, will challenge me, or, something like, okay, I'm not comfortable with this, but let me go do it. Let me, enjoy it. Let me jump into that fire.
That's awesome. Good for you. Yeah. I interviewed someone who wrote a book called How to Retire and Not Die. And the gist of it is really, it's not about money. It's about what you do with your life after you retire. You have to have purpose. You have to, have something to do with your time and pour yourself into. So keep on looking for those things that challenge you, Roger, and enjoy this time in your life because you earned it,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So on this podcast, I always ask my guests to share an oh hell no moment. An oh hell no moment is a moment of shock or disbelief. It can be a moment that you experienced alone or with someone else, but in that moment you were like, oh hell no. And it could have been an positive oh hell no, or it could have been a oh no. But share one that changed your life or changed your perspective on something. Share a defining oh hell no.
Well, I just had one. I mean, it pertains to the book. Okay. So I finished the book. I sent it out. My second daughter is a psychologist, and I sent the kids a copy of the book, and then I sent some friends a copy of the book also. And I knew they weren't going to BS me, and they would tell me the truth. Well, she called me after she read it, and she said, Dad, have you had any sensitivity training? Is anything, it was like, she was pretty critical. And I really interested. That was oh hell no moment. Because then I sat there and I said, maybe I shouldn't have written this book. Maybe it was just my ego talking and it wasn't anything else. And I'm second guessing myself. And fortunately, my friend ended up reading the book and called me the next day. And he goes, man, I couldn't put it down. That was the best book. So, my oh hell no moment is okay. Maybe my kids are not the ones to share this with. Maybe just a little bit too close. So
yes. Absolutely. I say it's your story, it's from your perspective, and it's valid, and you don't need to be sensitive. It's your life.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
sorry, kids.
That was it.
Right?
Exactly. Exactly.
I think as children of, people, parents, our parents, we have to realize that they too have a life that they lived, and they experienced all sorts of things, and it's not
Right.
all pretty, and
Yeah.
it just is what it is.
Yeah. And yeah, a lot of it wasn't pretty. And, and I grew up in the sales in the 70s, and, a lot of it, that was like the Mad Men era, it wasn't,
Mhm.
there's a lot of stuff that wasn't right, but that's kind of what I grew up. But fortunately, I had the chance to change it, but it's what I grew up in. So,
Yeah. And I mean,
yeah,
it's just a small part of your life, because look at all that you have accomplished and where you are today,
right,
and you can
right.
share your story, and your story can help others to see that they too can overcome adversities in their lives. So I
Absolutely.
applaud you. Thank you so much for sharing your
Thank
story.
you.
And I really appreciate you coming on this podcast.
Okay. Thank you for having me on your show. Take
No
care.
problem. Wait a minute, before you
Oh,
leave,
oh, oh, oh.
one more thing. Share how we can connect with you and where we can purchase your book.
Okay. So you can purchase it on Amazon. Once again, it's The Most Unlikely Leader, An Unbelievable Journey from GED to CEO. You can go onto my website, rogersmith.me. That's rogersmith.me. And that has all my social media. And you can also order the book from the website.
Okay, awesome, guys. So check Roger out and get yourself a copy of that book.
Please do. Please do.